Welcome to another dev update. With me as always is Brandon, lead dev. How are you doing, Brandon?
I'm doing great.
Great to hear. We also have with us Frederick Markor. Fred, thanks for joining us.
Happy to be here.
So let's dive into it. Brandon, what can you tell us? What's been going on?
So right now we've been extremely focused on getting our initial implementation of consensus together. So we've been doing a lot of research and development moving towards getting consensus ready for Discreet.
That's awesome. That's really exciting. Can you tell me a bit more about what you're doing? More details?
Of course. So Discreet's going to be using a dual mechanism for our consensus. Again, one mechanism is going to be in charge of selecting a committee that's going to be in charge of the second level of consensus, which is providing finality over the state of the blockchain.
Now, what does finality mean?
So the concept of finality, I guess I could best explain by example. So in Bitcoin, when you send a transaction, when people mine a block, your transaction gets included in that block, but there's a possibility of the state being forked. Again, because multiple miners can submit valid blocks in any round of consensus. So the way it works in Bitcoin is the longest chain is considered the correct chain. So once that is reached, then you consider the transaction as final, i.e. it cannot be reversed. And this irreversibility is kind of the core concept of Bitcoin's value transfer system and pretty much all of blockchain. However, the problem with this is that finality is probabilistic. This is why exchanges and point of sale systems require a certain number of confirmations for a transaction before they consider it final. And again, this number is determined by the exchange. There's also a concept called instant finality, which again is provided by Byzantine fault-tolerant algorithms. And this idea of instant finality is that the network itself guarantees that a transaction is irreversible as soon as it's included after a constant number of rounds of consensus. And this number does not change. We'll be using Aleph for this, which provides an extremely fast and extremely high throughput consensus mechanism for finality.
Great, thanks. I want to hear a little bit more about the committee selection algorithm you mentioned.
So yeah, this is actually based on some research that was done in 2018 at Aarhus University for a private proof of stake, which extended Ouroboros Preos. And this was again extended by Dusk Network, which simplified a lot of their math and made it a lot more generalized. And so we're going to be taking advantage of these to provide essentially a confidential proof of stake that allows people to vote on a specific committee in a given epoch of consensus in a way that hides the staking amount and keeps it confidential and private.
Oh, that sounds perfect for Discreet.
Exactly.
Tell me a bit about the technology being used. Is there anything there you want to highlight?
Yeah, again, one of the core technologies to all of this kind of privacy calculations that are done is the idea of a ZK snark, which is essentially a bit of code that runs privately that doesn't actually give away the inputs and outputs of the program, where instead you provide a proof that the calculation was correct.
Right,
So,
the ZK means zero knowledge.
Correct. There's actually two types of ZK snarks. The idea of a trusted setup ZK snark, which we will not be using, and a transparent ZK snark, which is what we are using. And the reason why we're using a transparent one is that with a trusted setup, it opens the door to certain attacks, such as backdoors when building something called a common reference string. Again, that would be bad. So we want to eliminate all possibilities to backdoors and provide the maximum amount of security. And in specific, we'll be using actually the Spartan NIZK ZK snark.
I heard there was a lot of work being done on the daemon. What can you tell me about that?
Essentially, we've been working a lot on getting the daemon as ready as possible for our closed alpha, the testnet. And so this involves, again, working on features that's going to make it easier for wallet integration and also making our network very, very secure. Specifically, there's been a lot of development on the peer-to-peer network stability. This includes preventative measures against like common network attacks, eclipse attacks, peerless poisoning, and sinkholing. We're actually really, really happy that we're getting to a point where we're very, very resistant to attacks like this.
Oh, that's awesome. Fred, I know you've been working with the team in particular on the daemon. Do you have anything to add?
Right. Yeah, so Ricky and I are, Ricky is another developer of ours, have been looking into implementing CMQ or ZeroMQ, which is something that exists in Bitcoin and a bunch of other cryptocurrencies, which just makes it easier for exchanges and other, external applications to integrate with Discreet. It's a socket-based system, so what you want to take away from that is that it's pretty fast, and it instantly notifies you when a new block or transaction has been published to the network. In previous updates, you will heard Brandon talk a lot about the RPC, so that's remote procedure calls, which just allows external applications such as centralized exchanges and wallets and stuff like that to interact with the discrete daemon. And this is really just an extension of that, so making it easier for external applications to integrate with us.
That should make it easier to list on centralized exchanges ultimately.
Yeah, that's essentially the goal, is that sometimes it can be a very tough sell to get a layer one, because it's completely novel technology and novel code to get those listed on centralized exchanges. But with Discreet, we've had this in mind since the beginning. So pretty much every RPC call, every CMQ topic, so that's the things you subscribe to, is standardized both in function and in name. So it should be relatively painless for centralized exchanges and other external applications to integrate with the daemon.
Oh, that's great. You mentioned the wallet.
Right.
I know you've showed a few videos on Telegram. What can you tell me about the wallet that's coming up?
Yeah, the wallet is very much near finished. I mean, the GitHub is open. It's called Discreet GUI on GitHub. You can go compile it yourself and run it if you want to. Build your own little discrete test network on your own machine. At this stage, it's very much near finished. It takes advantage of all the technologies I just spoke about, so RPC and CMQ. So we don't constantly just pull for data. We're actually only pulling when the 0MQ topic announces that there's new data to be had and stuff like this. And just recently, I published a video demonstrating that you can now actually recover a discrete wallet from a 24-word seed phrase. So that functionality is also there, and that was one of the last pieces that we needed.
It seems like an important one.
That is a very important one, and it's the last pieces that we needed in the wallet. So it's very much near ready for the alpha testing.
Well, that's great. I'm looking forward to using it. I can't wait. I know a lot of people are really excited to get their hands on that wallet. So thanks for all the work you've been doing there.
Most of the demonstrations have been on Windows, but it's obviously going to be cross-platform. We're using something called Avalonia that supports both Windows all the way back to 7 and up to 11. And pretty much all builds of Arch Linux and Ubuntu are Debian-based Linux distros and Mac OS. So it's going to be pretty much available anywhere.
That's awesome. I know that there's been a lot of work done on the DVM as well. What can you tell me about that?
Again, we've been making a lot of progress towards implementing a lot of the technology that's going to be used by consensus, but one of the advantages of this is this technology is going to be reusable for when we actually do DVM. So for private smart contracts, me and the team have been doing a lot of work into research on the best way we can implement this to provide all of the traditional decentralized finance tools in a privacy setting. And so one of the critical things for this is being able to run things called arithmetic circuits in a privacy setting. So there's a high-level language for representing these called CIRCOM, and we've extended this to essentially provide all of the tools we'll need for DVM. We're really excited about that.
That's awesome. Let's shift gears now away from the code base and talk about a few other developments that are happening at Discreet, the company.
Awesome. First off, we have two new employees, or two new full-time employees. One of them, again, we've hired a designer to gear up in anticipation for the release of testnet to do a very large marketing push. So we brought on Charlotte.
Yes, I've seen some of her work. She is great. Looking forward to seeing the work she can do.
Exactly. And we're also moving one of our employees to full-time, Henrik, who's been helping me and the team in developing a lot of the technology we'll be using for consensus and the DVM. So we're really excited.
That's awesome. Henrik's a genius.
Yeah, we're very proud of his work.
So I know there's been talk about a new contract. What can you tell me about that?
Yeah, we're going to be releasing a new contract, which is, again, it's going to essentially be the same contract we had before, but a lot of improvements. So one of these being that, again, concerning the longevity of the project and how committed we are, we're extending the lock on the development funds. We're also going to be providing anti-fraud mechanisms such as send limits, again with a whitelist to anticipate any possible issues that might need to be resolved in the future.
Are there going to be any changes to the tokenomics?
The tokenomics are essentially going to remain the same. There is going to be a change because we've been putting in a lot of work recently, and because we're ahead of schedule. We're actually in talks right now to actually get listed on a centralized exchange first instead of getting listed on a decentralized exchange like PancakeSwap. And we're actually going to be using the unsold tokens to facilitate the listing process to provide liquidity for the exchange and to make the token as available as possible once listed.
Well, that makes sense. That's great.
Yes.
That's exciting. So what does this mean for users?
Again, when we switch over to the new contract, the only action you're going to have to take is to add the new contract address to your MetaMask wallet. That is all you have to do. You don't have to send a transaction. You don't have to do anything else. All you have to do is add the new token to your MetaMask.
It'll transfer over to the new contract automatically?
Yes. Your DIS is already going to be in the new contract. All you have to do is add the new contract to your MetaMask.
Awesome. I expect we'll hear more about that in the coming weeks.
Exactly. We want to make it as simple as possible and make sure everybody does it.
Well, thank you so much, Fred and Brandon, for being here. Really appreciate you taking the time to walk us through some of these things. A lot of exciting stuff underway. Thanks so much.
Awesome. See you around.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having us.
Talk to you soon. Bye.